Welcome to the first video for Unit 5 Revolutions. And in this topic 5.0, we're going to look at a big picture of this age in an overview format. So by the time you're done with this video and doing the activities contained in it, we're going to be able to answer the questions: why do historians define the 1750 to 1900 time period, the modern age? And how does this age represent a change from the previous period? So the first thing we're going to talk about here is we're going to define what the modern age was. Then we're going to read a secondary source by a historian identifying the claim and the evidence used by the author to support that claim. And from this, we're going to come up with a deeper definition and description of what the modern age was and be able to identify the various changes that are taking place in history. So your first activity is to open up and read the Unit 5 introduction, Revolutions from 1750 to 1900. As you read, I would identify the claim or the thesis that the author makes, and I would identify the different evidence that the author uses to support their claim. So obviously this is this author's idea of what the modern age was. And it also kind of supports that with the different changes that took place in 1750 and the way that people survived and prospered throughout this age. Please go ahead and press pause now and go ahead and read the article. Okay, welcome back. So before we get into our notes, we need to understand the skill that's involved in this lesson. And this lesson is about the skill of periodization. Periodization is defined as the division of history into time periods, not necessarily by dates, but based on common processes humans are going to use to survive and prosper. The reason why this is important is because this is going to give us some mental framework to incorporate all the new information that we're going to get from this unit. So as we go through this lesson, please make sure that you're understanding this is what we're doing. So the modern age defined is essentially the time period between 1750 to 1900. And essentially what's going on is revolutionary changes that are going to lead to new ways to survive and prosper. So this is a time period in which traditional processes that humans use to survive and prosper change due to revolutions. And essentially, as a result, the processes that we use today to survive and prosper were established during this time period. So the key thing about this age is the idea of a revolution. So when you take notes from this, make sure you explain why this age begins in 1750 and focus on the revolutionary changes in the processes. So we start off with why 1750. And 1750 is essentially the modern age because this is when we see the rise of European maritime empires. The European maritime empires have now surpassed land empires in terms of economic power and military power. This is due obviously to mercantilism and their technology in building a maritime trade network to support their governments. Also, this is the time period where we see the proposal of new political systems. This is going to be known as the Enlightenment. And essentially what we've got going on is the Enlightenment is going to promote government systems that protect individual liberties and give people a voice in government. This is something brand new and revolutionary. It's a drastic change because when we look at the whole system, in the past, the individual monarch has been treated like a father figure, which essentially could or could not respect the individual liberties, and definitely did not give people the voice in government. Now what we're arguing as a revolutionary change through the Enlightenment is new systems of government that are designed specifically not to promote the will of the leader, but to promote the individual liberties and to give them a voice, either great or limited, in the system of government. The next revolutionary change that begins in 1750 is the development of new sources of power. So essentially what we have going on is scientific experimentation have now provided humans with coal. Well, what's the big deal about coal? Well, coal is a new source of power that increases the amount of energy that humans use to do stuff. Most importantly, to produce goods. This is going to lead to drastic changes in the economic process due to the Industrial Revolution, which is going to have an effect on changing the social structure and the cultural structure. When we focus on the environmental changes that define and represent changes from the last age, humans are now harnessing nature for their needs. What we mean by that is humans are using scientific experimentation to harness and utilize the environment for resources that they could better use in their lives. We've already talked about coal, but there's so many more fossil fuels that were used, so many more materials. And all of these are designed to make life better, to make survival and prosperity easier. So because of the foods from the Columbian Exchange, and because of these changes, the world experiences a population explosion. An explosion not because people are living longer, or not because there's a rise in birth rates, but because people are living longer due to the larger food supplies and new medicines. Finally, because of the new sources of power, people more easily migrate. They move from the country to the cities, causing great urbanization, and they also migrate across oceans for economic reasons. This is a free migration in which people are pulled or pushed to new areas because of the financial benefit. Again, these are all revolutionary changes, drastic changes in the way humans survive and prosper. When we talk about the political changes and what makes this revolutionary is that this is the age and the height of European Western civilization. We have a brand new type of empire arising. It's going to be called not a maritime empire, but an industrial empire. And just like empires of the past, it's going to be based on technological advantages. But during this age, Europeans are allowed to colonize Africa due to the new medicines and the weapons that are developed. They're able to take over India and create the British Empire in India. They're even able to make inroads into China and control China. The second thing, as I've already noted to, is the new political systems. Now, what happens is we have this big change going on. People are seeking to create governments that protected and promoted their individual liberties and also gave free men a voice in the government. What they wanted to create is a nation state. And unlike the empires of old, a nation state is a political community defined by a group of people who share a common culture and heritage, and were governed by political systems that promoted and protected individual liberties and provided free men with a voice of government. We have a huge shift in the balance of global power toward Europe. And that new source of global power is based on economic power, on military power, and simply a better way of life, that the non-Western world is going to have a choice whether that they're going to adopt or not. When we talk about economic processes, we're talking about the Industrial Revolution, a revolutionary change in the way goods are produced and consumed. This Industrial Revolution emerged from the new sources of powers that we talked about previously and the development of more complex machinery to produce mass amounts of products. Now, these goods are now available to everyone in large supplies at cheaper prices. So it's going to change the culture and the social structure. This leads to the development of industrial empires and also changes the world economy to a global capitalist economy in which individual demand drives the economy and areas in the world begin to specialize as producers or providers, producers of goods or providers of raw materials and markets. Now, this was not fair to everybody. We begin to see alternate views of the economy, such as socialism, develop, which promise to place more power in the hands of workers and distribute wealth more equally. Socially, this is the end of traditional social hierarchies that we saw the beginning of in the last unit. They're going to be replaced by social hierarchies or classes based on wealth. We also begin to see new roles for women who are established by the Industrial Revolution, women working in factories and having other jobs. And also the Enlightenment brings in the idea of equality between men and women. Finally, we have one pretty important continuity with the last periods, that conquered people were continued to be placed at the bottom of social structures. So, when we look at a possible SAQ question from this unit, explain one way that the contemporary environmental process developed during the modern age, we can answer that in this way. One way that the contemporary environmental process developed during the modern age was the use of fossil fuels. Coal is a fossil fuel. Oil is discovered during this time. Today, humans use oil as the main power of the source of machines and travel. This developed in the modern age because scientific experimentation led to humans using natural resources for their means. So when we look at the key takeaways, historians define the modern age as the age of revolutions. A revolution is a drastic change in the processes that humans use to survive and prosper. And the context for this were the intellectual movements such as the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, which brought up new ideas and new views that focused on the environmental, the political, the economic, and the social processes. That during this age, humans environmentally begin to harness nature for their needs. The world experiences a population explosion, and humans experience great levels of migration through greater mobility. Politically, this is the age of nation states that were created to unified people of a common culture and heritage under a government that promoted and protected individual liberties and promoted free men, a voice in government. This is a drastic change. It also leads to the changes in the global balance of power toward industrial empires and leads to economic changes such as the rise of the Industrial Revolution, which gave humans mass-produced goods at an availability not seen before. Socially, traditional social hierarchies finally end. Social classes are now totally based on wealth. New roles for women were established, but conquered people are going to continue to be placed at the bottom of the social structures.